So a cargo ship currently anchored off the coast of Kent and carrying thousands of tons of potentially explosive fertiliser is set to travel through UK waters. That is the latest as we understand it. If ignited, the ship known as the Ruby could explode with more power than the Nagasaki nuclear bomb. Jacob Karsbo, he's an associate at Think Europa, said the Russian boat has taken a very suspicious route.
My main line of thinking is that they're testing the Norwegian authorities and afterwards the Danish and Swedish authorities, seeing how much of a cooperation is there. Are they organized? What happens if we put this really, really dangerous cargo in sensitive areas next to a city, next to military installation, next to critical infrastructure? And then they want to, see the pattern that we react, and are the British authorities prepared?
I'm joined now by Andrew Surdey, who's a professor of the International Law of the Sea. What a fascinating job at Southampton University. Good evening, Andrew.
Good evening, Kate.
Thanks so much for joining us. Look, how much do you know about this ship? It's a Maltese flag cargo ship carrying thousands of tons of potentially explosive fertiliser.
Well, beyond what you've said, not a great deal. What I have seen reports of are that it's owned by a Russian individual or perhaps a Russian company, and that perhaps gives an added dimension to the number of states that might have a stake in what happens to this ship.
Okay, and look, the BBC's reporting that the ship is set to travel through UK waters at the moment. Well, certainly when we picked up on the story last night on the show, we broke it live on Times Radio. It was in international waters. So if the ship is and it's kind of sort of somewhere off the Kent coast at the moment, sort of between the Kent coast and the Thames estuary, what are the ramifications if it travels through UK waters?
Well, as I understand it, it's heading towards Malta, which is where it's flagged, and that means it's got no choice really but to pass through the Dover Strait. That will take it through UK territorial waters, and in that particular part of the world, there's a regime known as transit passage, which means that the coastal states, the UK on one side and France on the other, have no chance, no legal standing to interrupt that passage. So they simply have to let it go on its way and hope for the best in terms of nothing untoward happening.
Okay. So that is, I mean, we had heard yesterday that that Maltese authorities had told local media that the ship can only enter the country if it empties its cargo beforehand. The destination is listed as Malta, but they've put that caveat in there. Could that be possible? I mean, again, this is potentially highly explosive fertiliser. It would cause a blast much bigger than we saw in Beirut back in 2020, I think it was, when that huge store of fertiliser blew up.
Well, Malta, as the flag state, is entitled to give instructions to the master of the ship in terms of where it goes and possibly where it doesn't go. But at the end of the day, there's no other state that has an obligation to admit a ship to its ports in this kind of situation. So it's really got nowhere else to go apart from Malta or perhaps back to Russia from where it started.
Okay. Interesting. Several other nations have said, well, we don't want to take it, even in the interest of getting the ship repaired. So at the moment, as we understand it, it is basically waiting for appropriate conditions to refuel at sea, and then it will pass through the English Channel on the way to Malta. And I'm sure, I don't know how you watch ships normally, Andrew, whether there's something akin to Flight Tracker for ships, but I'm sure everyone's going to be watching it closely.
Well, there are websites where you can track ships' progress as they move across the oceans.
Do you instinctively feel that the ship is suspicious? You heard there from Jacob Karsbo, who felt it was something of a test. It's not sort of meant to explode or anything, but he felt that it was a test by Russia to look at how we would respond to a ship of this type in international waters.
Well, that's a possible explanation for some of the unusual manoeuvrings it's taken in terms of ships, or rather in terms of the ports to which it's sought access over the past few days and been denied it. On the other hand, we don't really know what's in the minds of the people who are responsible for giving its instructions. So that's as good as guess as any, I suppose, but we simply don't know.
Well, it is a curious story indeed, and I'm sure everyone will be very relieved when it's made it through the English Channel. As we understand, it's not started that journey yet. It could well have done, of course. I'm just giving latest reports here. Thank you so much for being with us, Andrew Surdey, Professor of the International Law of the Sea at Southampton University. Good to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you get anything genuine from it? What is the point of this?
Well, the point of this, to a great degree, is trying to Trump-proof what may happen in terms of assistance to Ukraine. There is great concern, and one of the reasons Zelensky is in the United States. He was in Washington, as you know, for with Biden, but he was there earlier as well. And there's concern in Kyiv that if Trump wins, as we know, the assistance is turned off and a deal is cut with Putin. And so what Biden has done right now is he's surged assistance up to $8 billion of assistance to Ukraine. And of course, in response to that, Zelensky is in town to talk to Biden about that so-called victory plan, which we are all waiting to hear about.
We are waiting to hear. We've sort of been led to believe that there are various prongs to it. One is that Zelensky will insist on the use of long-range missiles provided by the West to aim into Russia. Another is that they will be treated like a NATO nation, even though they are not a member. And there are other such headlines as well. Again, what is realistic?
Well, I think one thing that is going to have to be made as realistic as possible are security guarantees. For me and for many of us in Washington and Europe as well, NATO membership has got to be part of this. But if that proves impossible, then the United States and the nations of Europe are going to have to come up with some type of security guarantee for Ukraine that's short of membership, but has got to be more realistic than the Budapest Memorandum and other things that we had done in the past that didn't prove to be workable. So then that victory plan, as far as Zelensky is concerned, NATO is going to play a big role in it, and U.S. support for NATO membership for Ukraine will be critical.
Yeah, just getting a few lines through at the moment because they are currently meeting. Zelensky is in sort of a button-down black top with a pair of what looks like sort of army slacks, and Joe Biden's in a suit with Zelensky. And Zelensky has said they'll discuss how to strengthen his victory plan. They're both being photographed in the Oval Office as we speak. Not everyone is thrilled to have Volodymyr Zelensky over in the US. There was a visit with several top Democrats that he made to an ammunition factory yesterday in the key swing state of Pennsylvania, and it's angered Republicans. They've said that it's a partisan campaign event, and of course there continues to be a shroud, doesn't there, around Zelensky and the war in Ukraine. As you said, the need to Trump-proof it, but also the fact that several Republicans will be slightly knocked at the suggestion of a victory plan being brokered by the US or participated by the US.
Well, it's really interesting how this has now fed into the presidential campaign. I mean, we've known all along that Trump and Zelensky they're not exactly friends. After the famous phone call a few years ago, we know that J.D. Vance has come out with a crazy peace plan of his own that calls for Ukraine to give up territory to Russia. But now, over the past 24 hours, from the campaign trail, Trump is throwing hand grenades at Zelensky and talking about that he is the best salesman in the world. He comes to Washington, makes a pitch, and he leaves with billions of dollars. He's mocking what Zelensky is doing. And he's also saying, why should we pour money into Ukraine when the country has cities that are destroyed? It's time to end all of this. It's time to end the assistance. The war is over as far as Trump is concerned. So the rhetoric has gone up. The hostile attacks personally have gone up. So this has really become a sharp issue within the campaign, and Trump is really starting to throw these hand grenades at Zelensky.